Whole Hog Sports presents the basketball podcast of Mid-America, the premier Arkansas Hoops podcast, brought to you by Landers Toyota of Northwest Arkansas. Here's your host, Whole Hog Sports basketball analyst Scottie Bordelon.
Welcome into the basketball podcast of Mid-America. It is Friday, January 26th, and Arkansas basketball is a couple games into SEC play. We appreciate you listening in as we try to get back into the groove of doing this podcast, on a weekly basis. We've been a little bit hit and miss, recording the show, I guess, since, Arkansas went on they played 4 games since, I guess, the game against Missouri on Wednesday was Arkansas's 5th game since December 10th. So it's been kind of a lot of stop and go in terms of the schedule. Been a really weird stretch of the schedule, but really excited as always to have Andrew Joseph of Whole Hog Sports and Bob Holt of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette joining me. Hope you get caught up and learned up on what's been happening with the Razorbacks. And Arkansas, like I said, they're 2 games into league play. They're 1-1 going into this weekend's game at Auburn. Just kind of recapping the last week or so, Arkansas lost at LSU to open SEC play 60-57. Had a shot to win it late. Just game turned into a rock fight. And, I always tend to think that rock fights, favored home teams. And then they turned around on Wednesday and beat Missouri 74-68. Pretty entertaining game as a whole, but the first half for Arkansas, I thought it maybe should have come with a TVMA rating in terms of what their offense looked like. It was pretty ugly. So I guess we can start there. Arkansas comes back from 17 down in the first half against a pretty good Missouri team. I think Missouri's exceeded a lot of expectations in their first year with Dennis Gates. Really revamped roster. Got some dudes on their team now to go around. Kobe Brown is a pretty solid player. I guess I'll start there. Just what were y'all impressions of Arkansas's comeback win? I think it was Arkansas's biggest comeback since maybe 2 Januaries ago when they came back from 19 down against Auburn.
Well, yeah, I thought it was a really good win. I mean, you're down, like you said, that first half was ugly with turnovers and a lot of missed shots. They really struggled from the perimeter against Missouri's zone. Couldn't get their running game going. But to me, yeah, if you're down 17-2, yeah, I agree. A pretty good Missouri team that had beaten Illinois soundly in St. Louis and beaten Kentucky soundly in Columbia, and came in with a lot of confidence. And like you said, I think they've added 8 or 9 transfers. I mean, Dennis Gates he's bringing more transfers than Eric has. And so, yeah, I thought it was a good win. Obviously, Joseph Pinion came off the bench and gave him a nice spark. And Ricky Council, who first half struggles mirrored Arkansas's, had a really good second half when Eric didn't start him. I thought he responded really well to that. So I thought it was a really good win for Arkansas. And Missouri kept coming back at him. And then, like, once Arkansas got the lead, Missouri collapsed. Missouri kept coming back at him. So I think that speaks well for Missouri, but also, Arkansas was able to make plays to hold them off.
Yeah, there was a point probably when they were down 17 in that first half where I thought Arkansas might get run out of the gym and it just might not be their night, and it's going to be an ugly game in front of the home crowd. But to their credit, they did stick it out, and I think the introduction of Joseph Pinion really changed some things for an Arkansas team that was struggling to stretch the Missouri zone defense and a team that was struggling to shoot. They were just 2 of 12 from a 3-point line in the first half, 5 of 10 from the free throw line, and Ricky Council was minus 18, which was kind of the big shocker.
Wasn't that
for
crazy?
Me. That was definitely the big shocker for me, and I think it was a big shocker to Muss too, because he started him on the bench in the second half, which paid dividends.
Yeah, let's get into Joseph Pinion a little bit. We've seen him the most, I guess, in Arkansas's last 2 home games. So he played 19 minutes against UNC Asheville. I think he had 10 points, hit a couple threes in that game. He had 3 assists also against Asheville, which I thought was maybe more impressive than the perimeter shooting. You got to see a little bit of the playmaking or the shot creation from him, even though he's, you look at him and you just think about, just perimeter shot making. But I think, he was, anytime that Joseph is on the floor, like, I think teams are going to hunt him. Like, I just think that's the obvious place to go, when Arkansas is defending. But I thought he did a good enough job holding his own. I think he forced a couple of missed shots. I still haven't gone back and done the shots defended for each Arkansas player. I haven't done that in a while, but I'm wanting to do that for both of the SEC games to this point. So I thought he was okay there. Like, he gave up I think a couple buckets too. But and then he came up with a steal in the second half that, when Ricky Council finally got checked back into the game, Pinion was on the floor, came up with a steal, loose ball, found, I think it was Anthony Black, and then AB hit Ricky for a dunk, and that kind of got things going in the second half. So he made an impact, I feel like, on both ends of the floor. Maybe what stood out to y'all about just, I guess, the way that he kind of changed the complexion of the game.
Well, yeah, I thought one good play, of course, Arkansas pounded Missouri on the boards, beat them. I think it was 40-23, had 15 offensive boards, including one by Pinion and a putback. And you don't really think of him as a guy that's going to go in there and mix it up. At least I don't. But he got in there and got an offensive rebound. Hey, he's 6'5". He's not like a 5'10" little guard. He's 6'5", pretty, well put together guy. And so he can get in there and do some other things. Obviously, his 3-point shoot is what stands out. But like you say, yeah, that's steal. He was literally on the floor, and Missouri guys were harassing him. And he got the ball to like you said, to AB, who got the ball to Council. That kind of got Ricky going. I think that was right after he came in, because I was looking it up yesterday. He came in like at 15:02, and I think within 8 seconds was that dunk.
Yeah, it was
So
8 seconds later.
yeah,
Yep.
so he got in and got going, and but yeah, Pinion, he's definitely going to start showing up on scouting reports, I think, because the number one thing he did was, like I say, he hit some shots over that zone. He had 3 out of 6 threes, and the rest of the team was really struggling with that. And yeah, he's definitely earned more minutes. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, I think the extended action that he got on the court really helped him. I think because when he had been in previous games, it was limited action, and it was when maybe Arkansas was in a scoring drought, and so they sub on Joseph Pinion. But it was almost like when the football team would bring on Malik Hornsby, like you knew they were going to run a play for him because they needed his contribution or whatever. And so it kind of felt like defenses could really key in on Joseph Pinion whenever he came in for just that little stretch for an offensive boost, and then they'd take him out. But having him on the court for, I think he played 27 minutes. I mean, they weren't able to just solely focus on him and run him off the 3-point line, and they had to play defense on other guys, which I think allowed Joseph Pinion to get more open looks. And he missed his first 2, but he made 4 of his last 5, and I think you saw his confidence grow as he stayed on the floor.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I made a joke. Maybe it was to Tom, who's sitting to my right during the game, when Joseph made his third three. I said the only thing that's got more bounce than Joseph Pinion's step is his hair when he's running down the court. One of the other things I really liked, I thought it was kind of funny too, was Bob mentioned the putback that Joseph had off the Ricky Council airballed 3. And he gets possession of the ball. He goes up with his left hand, finished with his left hand. I think if it had gone up with his right, he probably would have got it pinned to the glass. But after he made the layup, he like pointed at Ricky Council, like, hey man, like good pass, like that was good job finding me. But he was so serious about it. That was really, I thought that was kind of funny. But that was good work from Joseph, just kind of sneaking in on the weak side for an offensive board. Missouri's really struggled this year, giving up offensive rebounds. I think I showed Bob the statistic on KenPom. I think there's only 6 teams in the country as of late Wednesday night that had, given up a higher offensive rebound percentage than Missouri. So Arkansas did a really good job of taking advantage of that. Something else I liked about Joseph was just, dude runs the floor so hard. And anytime Arkansas got out and ran the other night, and it's kind of a byproduct of, he said, what Arkansas teaches when they do transition drills in practice is that he's taught to, not only find the corner, but Eric called it the extreme corner. And he does a really good job of filling lanes. And, when Arkansas is on the run, kind of those broken floor situations. And that really leads to some opportunities from him. And I think 2 of his 3 threes the other night, came in that corner or extreme corner spots.
Yeah, and Eric talked about that flattened out the zone. The Missouri was playing a lot of guys, in the front, and that left them a little more vulnerable to those corner shots. There's not a lot of room up there. How many times you see guys step out of bounds, because there's so little room behind that 3-point line and the sideline. But yeah, and Scottie, I think you asked him about it. Maybe asked Eric or Joseph both. Just, I think that's maybe an underrated skill or something to learn, is how to fill the lane the right way and be in the right spot. Duplicate what you do in practice, so your teammates kind of know, look, okay, the Joseph's going to be here as we're breaking down. And really, that's what got Arkansas going. They 47 points the second half. They got their running game going. So much of that first half, they were just having to try to score against that set Missouri packed in zone, and they were really struggling. Passing the ball around the perimeter, really weren't getting much penetration, and but they finally got that running game going in the second half.
Has anything else stood out to you guys from the first couple of games in league play? For me, I don't know if it's so much specifically about Arkansas, but they've given up 57 and 68 points defensively in their first two games. And I looked at KenPom, and they're number 6 in the conference in league games in defensive efficiency. I just think there's so many teams in the league right now that can really defend. And I think Arkansas is one of them, just given the guards' ability to be disruptive kind of at all three levels of the floor. And then Mekhi Mitchell's toughness and shot blocking has been pretty impressive. How about I got some trivia for you guys, okay? So according to KenPom, who in the SEC is number 1 in conference games only in defensive efficiency, and then who is last? What are the two teams that you think are first and last right now?
I'll go. I'll say Kentucky's last and Georgia's first. Just because that makes no sense.
Andrew, who you got?
I'll go LSU first, and I'll go Mizzou last.
So this really caught me maybe a little bit by surprise, but Alabama is number 1. They've played both of the Mississippi schools, so I mean their numbers are probably going to change a little bit. I don't think that facing the Mississippi schools at this point is, the toughest test. I remember Mississippi State got down 16-0 to Tennessee the other day, and Tennessee's a team that can really defend too, so I don't know how much you make of that. But Bob was on the money. Kentucky is dead last in defensive efficiency right now. They're giving up over 125 points per 100 possessions, which is kind of yeah, it's pretty ugly. It's stunning, but they've played two, I think, pretty decent offensive teams. Like Missouri was, I think, top 5 in the country in offensive efficiency when they played Kentucky, and they scored pretty easily against Kentucky. And then they played LSU at home the other night. That one turned into a really good game. But that's just kind of a look at the defensive landscape in the league. I think Eric mentioned it not too long ago. There's probably half of the league is just, it's going to be really tough to score on those teams. And then the bottom half, there's going to be some nights where they're just, really locked in to whatever their game plan is. The Basketball Podcast of Mid-America is sponsored by Landers Toyota of Northwest Arkansas. Visit their showroom at 411 South Metro Parkway in Rogers, or online at landerstoyotanwa.com. One of these days, y'all, I'm going to make my way up there and get me a Tacoma. I don't know when that's going to be, but yeah, check out landerstoyotanwa.com or go up to Rogers and visit their showroom.
For all your automotive needs, shop Landers Toyota NWA in Rogers, where we guarantee you the best buying experience and best service after the sale in Arkansas. Landers Toyota NWA in Rogers.
WholeHogSports.com has the largest, most experienced staff of reporters covering sports in Arkansas. Football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, and more. You'll find it at WholeHogSports.com. The website includes up-to-minute news, daily commentaries, and award-winning photography from the staffs of Hogs Illustrated and the Democrat Gazette. For subscriptions, call 1-800-757-6277. That's 1-800-757-6277. Or visit us online today. WholeHogSports.com.
Want more coverage of your home team? Download the Whole Hog Sports Video on Demand app. Check out the Fan Zone and get up-to-the-minute videos, podcasts, and features on football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, and more. Search for Whole Hog Sports on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire at home. And take it with you on the go by downloading it for your mobile device in your app store. The Whole Hog Sports Video on Demand app. Get it today.
I'm not sure how long we've been recording, to be honest, but before we get any further into this thing, I think we need to mention the latest of what's going on with Nick Smith. We found out before tip-off on Wednesday that he was seeing a specialist for his knee, and he wouldn't be in the building for the Missouri game. and that got a lot of people talking, thinking, speculating a little bit. And then right before tip-off, I learned that he was in LA with his marketing team seeing a specialist, which maybe it's just me, but that feels a little bit different than, he's just seeing a specialist. And Eric on Thursday in his Zoom, Bob asked for an update on Nick, in his Zoom previewing the Auburn game this weekend, and Eric expects Nick to miss the rest of January. And I don't know that I'm not probably going out on much of a limb here, I don't think, but the likelihood that he comes back at all went down, given that he's going to miss the first full month of conference play. Just what's y'all's feel about this situation? Because I think that Nick wants to play. He's also got a future to keep in mind, and he's still projected top 5, top 10 pick in next year's, or I guess this year's draft. Now it's 2023, isn't it? But it's kind of an interesting situation. Just I'm curious to get y'all's sense or y'all's feel for this.
Well, yeah, it's a bit of a dilemma. I don't doubt, he's an Arkansas kid. I don't doubt that he wants to play for the Razorbacks. I remember after, the first game he really got to play a lot. I think that was San Jose State. He had 16, and he talked about how he's been waiting to do this and anxious to do this. And, as much as it's great to be a high NBA draft pick and make millions of dollars, I think there's still kids wanting to play in March Madness. I mean, they grow up seeing the NCAA tournament, and if you have a chance to play in the NCAA tournament, maybe help your team make a big run, get to a Final Four. I mean that's pretty exciting. And I don't know what kid would want to do that, especially if a guy's playing for his home state university. But then you pit that against how healthy are you? Could you jeopardize your NBA draft stock by could you aggravate the injury, and or maybe you're not playing well and that affects how teams look at you? And I mean, I don't think there's any doubt Nick Smith's going to be a high draft pick no matter what happens. I mean, the earth could fall off its axis and he's still going to be a high draft pick. But there's a difference between being the fifth, third, fourth, fifth pick and the 18th, 19th pick. I mean, as great as that is,
that's a lot of a lot of money if you slip to that point.
And I'm not saying he would slip to that point, but I think at some point you got to say, what's the best thing for him? And honestly, what's the best thing for the team? Because when he was able to come back, that was great. You're adding one of the best players in the country, and he played really well. They probably don't beat Greensboro without him. Like Eric pointed out, that the night that the team was kind of off and Trevor Brazil got hurt and all that. And but I don't think it does Nick any good, or frankly the team any good, if he's comes back, plays a couple games, has to take himself out at the end of games like he had to against Oklahoma and Bradley, and then he's out for a couple more weeks. I mean, I think at some point, the team kind of needs to know where everything stands, and really for his own well-being, mentally, physically, Nick Smith and his, advisors and agent and family and all that, they probably have to make a decision for his best interest too.
Yeah, I just think Nick Smith's really in a tough spot. Unfortunately for Arkansas fans, college basketball and college athletics in general is not the pinnacle of sports for these young athletes. Like, they want to go on and play at the next level. That's the goal. And so Nick Smith wants to be as successful as he can at the next level. Maybe his best option is to not jeopardize a career-ending injury or injury that slides him down the draft boards. And I totally get that. And that's a very understandable decision. I think what the part that is maybe more annoying or just kind of is the egging it on and being so vague with the injury descriptions and kind of not giving a definitive statement. Just the statement is that he's out indefinitely. Well, no one knows how long indefinitely is going to be. And so I think if he's not going to play again, then maybe he should just come out and say that and kind of leave the team per se, or just kind of put an end to the speculation.
Yeah, it's just a super, I think it's complicated. Like, I don't think there's any doubt, like I said earlier, that Nick wants to play. Like, he came to Arkansas, but partly, because he wants to play for his home state, and Arkansas basketball in the last few years has been trending in the right direction. They've been, they probably the last years since their first Elite Eight run, or probably before that. They've been looking for pieces to help them get over that Elite Eight hump. And, there's really no greater piece than like a guy who's projected to be a top 5 pick. You add him to your roster, you feel like that could be the piece that gets you over that hump, because you got to have really, really elite, terrific guard play in March to, you know, reach a Final Four, be in contention for a national championship. And Nick's that high level guy that, when he's right, he can help you get to that point and put your program on the map even further and help you get more guys like him to help you sustain that level of success. It's just pretty interesting to me to just, kind of follow the timeline of this. And I've, maybe just to you guys, I've said it before, but if he's going to miss January, I just don't know. I don't know that there's a bunch of reasons that you do come back and you don't just start, getting prepped for. First you keep rehabbing, you try to get that knee as healthy as you can, and then, prep for the upcoming draft and just focus on that, because I'm not sure that it's particularly worth it, in my opinion, to come back and press it just to try to win at like Mississippi State. You know what I mean? Like, Nick's got his whole future ahead of him. So I don't know. Maybe I'm off base on that, but I think Arkansas has got enough talent to where they can compete and, win a lot of games in the league. It's just they're going to have to figure out game by game how they're going to score. And it might be a different guy every night. I mean, that's a big hole that Nick is leaving, because when he's on, like you saw it in back-to-back games, he's went for 20 plus points, so he's a big piece that they're missing. All right, I'm gonna do this again. I'm gonna talk about Mekhi Mitchell. And I think in some respects, I think he's kind of become the my Desi Sills a little bit. Like and I think that Mekhi is just like, he's such a big piece of this team, man. And you look at at LSU, what he went for 8 and 12, blocked 3 shots. Then the other night, I think he goes for 7 or 8 points and maybe 5 or 6, 7 rebounds, blocks a couple more shots. And he did it in only 15 minutes, which I thought was more impressive. And his defense on Kobe Brown was coming off 2 back-to-back 30-point games. And you would have thought that the Monstars kind of took his talent the other night. Like, one of his buckets came against Jordan Walsh, and then Eric made a really good decision to put Mekhi on Kobe Brown for, however long of a stretch. Like I said, Mekhi only played 15 minutes, but he held Kobe Brown in check, I thought, pretty well. And you just look at the shot blocking streak that he's on. He's got 18 blocks since Arkansas got back from Maui, and he had 3 in the first 6 games of the season. I think his development and his growth has been really good. And so I've got a couple questions. Can he maintain the shot blocking pace? And can he become a guy who maybe gets himself into that all SEC conversation and maybe the defensive player of the year conversation? I think the latter part of that is, more predicated on the kind of success that Arkansas has as a team and defensively. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, given the way that he's been playing. And you look at him from a steals perspective too. I think he's right there.
Yeah, I think he's been better than anticipated. We've talked about this before, but he didn't do much over in Europe when they had their tour over there. But he's really come on since then. He's a huge piece. Just his efficiency on offense and what he does on defense. And the reason he only played 15 minutes the other night against Missouri, he had 2 fouls in the first half, so he had a good bit of that. That's kind of a rule with Eric, and a lot of coaches, guys get 2 fouls in the second half, they sit. Mm-hmm. But he was very, very effective. I mean, you spread out his statistics over, say, 30 minutes, which he plays, he can certainly do that. Yeah, he's a big piece, and you don't see big guys get as many steals as he usually does. But I think he's got good hands, whether it's making steals or catching passes in the post and delivering. And he seems to be their go-to guy. He's always scoring early in the game, getting the first bucket.
Always.
if I was Auburn, I'd put like 5 guys on him coming off the tip, and make somebody
else beat you. Yeah,
but yeah, Mekhi, to me, he's been a real nice addition. And his brother got in early. I guess when Mackay got in foul trouble, they put in McKell, I think. Kind of was confused to be there for a minute. I was like, hey, there's a 20, where's 15 type deal. Or maybe no, the 20 is Kamani. I guess McKell's
Yeah,
22.
22. Yeah,
Yeah,
22.
22. But yeah, I don't disagree. He's probably could be one of the best defensive players in the conference, but being a new guy and maybe being that Arkansas's third or fourth scoring option statistically anyway, I don't know that he would get the individual attention you need. But I think he's a guy you probably have to see consistently to really appreciate him. I mean, you can look at the stats and say, wow, look at Ricky Council. He's scoring a lot. Or you watch Joseph Pinion hit some threes, or you watch Anthony Black just doing everything. But I think Mackay's probably flies a little bit under the radar in the conference because he just does a lot of things really well. He certainly can dunk, but you don't see him with those, Sports Center highlight dunks like he did with Trevor Brazil, or even Ricky Council getting those reverse dunks, or even a guy like Devo. I just think that Mackay's a very blue collar, workman-like guy that just does a lot of things really well to help you win games.
Yeah, I think Eric Musselman has to be pleased with what he's getting out of Mackay recently. And I think anybody who watched last year's team and watched the game against Duke in the NCAA tournament where Arkansas lost saw that Arkansas had a lack of an elite rim protecting and an elite big man, really, and they coupled that with the fact that they lost their best big man in Jalen Williams. Uh, I think it was a concerted effort to get big men in the transfer portal. Like they got the Mitchell twins. They even brought Trevin Brazil, 6'10", Jalen Graham as well. Well, you lose Trevin Brazil for the season. Jalen Graham hasn't necessarily emerged as much as maybe some thought. And so you're kind of really relying on the Mitchell twins to fill that void. And I think Mackay really has stepped into that role and asserted himself. And I think he's going to have to continue doing so. And I think he's just so coordinated for big guys. Like you guys mentioned, he has
Yeah.
good hands, but he also has good feet. He runs the floor well, and he's got good footwork.
Yeah, he's a terrific roller too. I think anytime he sets a ball screen on the perimeter, like he's really good at kind of setting those smoke screens where he doesn't really make contact with the guy that's defending the ball handler, and he just kind of just swiftly rolls into the lane and he's open. I feel like a lot more often than not. Maybe I need to watch more film, but he's really impressed me there. But again, with the shot blocking, last 10 games, 1.8 per game. And I looked at CBB analytics. That puts him in the 97th percentile nationally over the last 10 games in terms of shots blocked per game. It's just, he's really good. I think they're going to need, more of that against, especially this weekend, as they're playing Janai Broome. He's been, arguably one of the better big guys in the league to this point in the year, and he's kind of the anchor for Auburn in the front court, just the same way that Mackay is. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup and see how Mackay matches up with Jalen Williams from Auburn and whom I think Chris Moore. I think Chris Moore's been playing quite a bit too, so really interested in that. We'll jump into this weekend's game. Arkansas is playing, like I said, at Auburn. Tip-off is at 7:30 on the SEC network. Auburn's coming off a road loss at Georgia on Wednesday that I don't know that I saw coming. And I think it was kind of surprising to me. Just kind of expect Auburn to figure out a way to beat Georgia on the road. But Mike White's doing a pretty good job at Georgia to this point. We'll see if they keep playing well. But Auburn's 11-3. Their losses are to Memphis and on a neutral floor. I believe that game was played in Atlanta. So they've lost at USC too, and then they lost at Georgia earlier in the week. They beat Florida to open SEC play. Ken Palm's got Auburn 10th in SEC only games in offensive efficiency and 7th in defensive efficiency through 2 games. I guess just how do y'all see this going? I know Auburn's got the 26 game home win streak, so it's really tough to win at Auburn. But how do y'all see it going? And y'all have any bold predictions for this game?
I think it might be like you mentioned that LSU game, kind of a rock fight. Because you look at Auburn's, they're ranked 22nd. They've got some good wins. They're talented. They're always going to be talented under Bruce Pearl, but they don't necessarily have a Jabari Smith, who was the 3rd pick in the draft, and Kessler, the big guy they got from Carolina, he's doing really well. Big shot blocker guy. So I think they've taken a little bit of a drop off in talent. It's like you mentioned, Chris Moore from West Memphis, Alan Flanagan's coming off the bench now for him from Little Rock, but they have a lot of experienced guys, like a lot of guys from last year's team that are back. Not the star players, but some pretty good
Yeah, you still
players.
got Wendell Green, Katie Johnson,
Right.
those guys. Yeah.
So I think it's a very experienced team, and I can't remember. Somebody asked Eric about this. Maybe the revenge factor for Auburn. Arkansas doesn't have many guys left. We remember Devo, made that big dunk at the end.
Yeah.
But Auburn's got a
Underrated
lot.
storyline is Wendell Green seeing Devo again.
Yeah, yeah. So, Auburn's got a lot of veteran players, and they're at home. So I think it's going to be a real tough game for Arkansas. If you look in the SEC, I know it's real early, but the home teams have really done a good job defending their home court, just like Georgia beating Auburn, and I know Alabama went to Mississippi State and won, but I'll have to look it up. That may be the only road win. I mean, it's always going to be tough in the road in your conference and a conference like the SEC, but I think it's a real tough game for Arkansas. It'd be a great win to get on the road because Auburn just doesn't lose at home very often. But I think it's going to be probably a kind of a tough defensive game, and Arkansas is going to have to make some plays in the half court probably, and limit their turnovers and hit their free throws. They got to do a better job hitting those free throws, on the road. If you're going to win on the road, you better hit your free throws.
Andrew, what you got?
Yeah, and like Bob said, I think this is going to be a tough game for Arkansas, just because kind of all the factors coming into it. You've got Arkansas, the higher seed, going away to Auburn, where it's a tough place to play. You're going to play in front of a packed crowd, some crazy fans, and I know Eric Musselman dismissed the notion of using the win against number one Auburn last year as kind of a motivating factor for his team, but I can guarantee you that Bruce Pearl is going to be talking about that game with his team in that huddle, and they've got a lot of guys that were there for that, and so I think that revenge factor is definitely there for Auburn, and then so is coming off a loss against a maybe lesser opponent is probably also a little bit of a fueling factor, whereas Arkansas is coming off a win on a ranked opponent, and so it does very well likely seem that it could be. I don't want to call it a trap game because it's still Auburn's a good team and Arkansas is two good teams going at it, but it does seem like maybe Auburn might have a little more to play for.
Yeah, I guess my bold predictions for the game, I think I'm going to stick with that Mackay train. I've got him. I'm going to have him going for a double-double. I think he's going to have a bunch of opportunities to, block shots, rebound shots, just defending, Auburn's front line guys. And I think, I think Arkansas can win this game if they limit Wendell Green and Katie Johnson. If they keep those guys to like 22 to 24 combined points between those two guys, I think they've got a real shot. Because Arkansas, they're going to go in with a game plan to slow, their top offensive guys. And I think those two guys are the head of the snake. And, I think Eric would live with, Auburn throwing the ball on the block to Janai Broome and letting Mackay defend him. And I just think you got to defend those ancillary guys or the auxiliary guys. Like, you can't let Flanagan get loose, and you can't let Zep Jasper hit like 2 or 3 threes. You just got to limit, kind of the pieces that go around the main guys. But really looking forward to it. It's going to be a really, really good game. Going to be a weekend crowd late at night on Saturday. So Arkansas's got to be ready for that. They've got one SEC road game under their belt, so they're going to have to prepare for probably the best road atmosphere they've faced to this point. Again, Arkansas is at Auburn, 7:30 tip on SEC Network on Saturday. Bob, Andrew, really appreciate you guys hopping on with me again to just kind of recap what's been going on, and always appreciate you guys for listening and joining in. For Bob Holt and Andrew Joseph, I'm Scottie Bordelon. Appreciate you guys listening, and we'll holler at you again next week.
The proceeding has been a production of WholeHogSports.com. Look for our latest podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast store. And visit us anytime at WholeHogSports.com for the latest news and commentary.